Good day, I'm Sharafalir, the first reporter of Group 3, and our topic is all about reliability and validity. The learning objectives is to define validity and reliability and its importance, to determine the application of validity and reliability to education, as well to determine the difference between validity and reliability. So, what is validity? Validity is a term derived from the Latin word validus, meaning strong. It means it is the quality of being based on truth or reason or being accepted. Also, validity of the test measures truthfulness. Assessment is valid if it measures what it is supposed to. For example, if the test has been constructed to measure IQ, then it should be measured IQ only and not EQ. As well, if the test has been constructed to measure personality, then it should be revolves in the content items which measure the personality and not anything else. The correlation of the test with some criterion is validity. Example, Math Achievement Test for grade 6 students. Math achievement test administer it to students. The test might lead teacher to give valid interpretation to math achievement of grade 6 students, but if she will use the same test, which is the math achievement test, to make interpretation of students' knowledge in geography, then it is not valid. It is because math achievement test only revolves around different math equations and it is not related to geography. The process of gathering evidence to support or fail to support a particular interpretation of test score is called validation. Sources to establish validity under this are content-related evidence, second, criterion-related evidence, and have the sub-content which is concurrent validity and predictive validity. Third is the construct-related evidence and divided into two, which is convergent validity and discriminant validity. Let's tackle the content-related evidence. It pertains to the extent to which the test covers the entire domain of content. Example, a professor wants to test the overall knowledge of his students in the subject of elementary statistics. His test would have content validity if the test covers every topic of elementary statistics that he taught in class. The test does not cover unrelated topics such as history, economics, biology, and etc. Content validity focuses on qualities of the test rather than qualities of test course or interpretation. And also, we have the table of specialization, or what we call TOS, is an example of test blueprint that identifies the content area and describes the learning outcomes of each level of the cognitive domain. Content validity is related to face validity. Face validity refers to how accurate an assessment measures what it was designed to measure. Just by looking at it, it is also considered to be informal and very subjective. Example, if a test is given to measure your learnings in addition and subtraction, the test should measure your learnings in addition and subtraction and should not measure on how you fast to solve the equation or the given. It means that the test content should not be irrelevant or inappropriate. Second is the criterion-related evidence. So what do you mean by criterion? Criterion is the standard against which a test or test score is evaluated. There are two types of criterion-related evidence, which is the concurrent validity and predictive validity. Concurrent validity is an index of the degree to which a test score is related to some criterion measured, obtained at the same time, or it means it has no time interval happening. It means that a measure on how well a particular test correlates with the previous validated measure. Let's say that a group of nursing students take two final exams to assess their knowledge. One exam is a practical test and the second exam is a paper test. If the student who scores well on the practical test also scores well on the paper test, then concurrent validity has occurred. The next is the predictive validity. Predictive validity is an index of the degree to which a test score predicts some criterion measures. Example, a SAT test is taken by high school students to predict their future performance in college. So from the word prediction, predictive validity is tend to predict your future performances. These are three types of criterion. A is the achievement test score, B is the ratings, grades, and other numerical judgment made by the teacher, and C is the career data. Third is the construct related evidence. From the word constructs. Construct are unobservable presupposed traits that are test developers may involve to describe test behaviors or criterion performances. Stated in the screen are the three types of construct-related evidence. The two methods to establish construct validity is the convergent and divergent validity. Let's tackle first the convergent. Convergent validity is the test that constructs that are expected to be related or focuses on similarities. Let's move to divergent or discriminant validity. Discriminant or divergent validity is a test that constructs that should have no relationship or reveal opposite result, and it is focuses in differences. For example, the study of nervousness versus confidence, and also the study of favorite food versus performance task. Those studies are the examples that don't have any relationship or similarities. And now I will be going to give the floor to the next reporter, Mr. De La Cuesta.
Good morning, everyone. I am Christian Anthony de la Cuesta. I will be your next reporter. Validity of assessment methods. Developing performance assessment involves three steps. 1. Define the purpose determining the essential skills students need to develop and the content worthy of understanding. 2. Choose the activity for them to have an assessment. 3. Develop criteria for scoring. In scoring, a rubric or rating scale has to be created. Teachers must exercise caution because distracting factors like students' handwriting and neatness of the product affect rating. 5 recommendations. 1. The selected performance should reflect a valued activity. 2. The completion of performance assessment should provide a valued learning experience. 3. The statements of goals and objectives should be clearly aligned with the measurable outcomes of the performance activity. 4. The task should not examine extraneous or unintended variables. 5. Performance assessment should be fair and free from bias. And now, let's go to threats to validity. Number 1. Unclear test directions. Giving unclear instructions to students can make them fully uncomprehend on what they need to do to achieve in the classroom. Number 2. Complicated vocabulary and sentence structure. It makes prose puff up and heavy, so that reading it becomes a chore instead of a pleasure. Number 3. Ambiguous statements. An ambiguous sentence has two or more possible meanings within a single sentence or sequence of words. This can confuse the reader and make the meaning of the sentence unclear. Number 4. Inadequate time limits. Failing to keep to a scheduled time limit will result to not passing the test on time, giving them more pressure and nervousness. Number 5. Inappropriate level of difficulty of test items. Indicate that the item is measured something other than what the rest of the test is measuring. More often, it is a sign that the item has been miskeyed. Number 6. Poorly constructed test items. It can impact on students' understanding of course content and their level of competency in applying what they are learning. Number 7. Inappropriate test items for outcomes being measured. Validity is the extent to which an assessment accurately measures what it is intended to measure. Validity is impacted by various factors, including reading ability, self-efficiency, and test anxiety levels. 8. Short test. Teachers may end up teaching to the test rather than giving students a deep understanding of a subject. Number 9. Improper arrangement of items. If the difficult items are placed early in the test, it may make the students spend too much of their time on this and fail to reach other items which they could answer easily. Also, such an improper arrangement may influence the validity by having a negative effects on students' motivation. Number 10. Identifiable patterns of answer. They can clearly guess the answer and this will affect the validity. Suggestions of enhancing validity. Number 1. Ask others to judge the clarity of what you are assessing. Assessments have much wider implications than just being a tool to judge attainment and progress. Good assessment drives independence. Number 2. Check to see if different ways of assessing the same thing give the same result. Identify questions that may not be difficult enough. Number 3. Sample a sufficient number of examples of what is being assessed. The size of an example influences two statistical properties. Number 1. The precision of our estimates, and number 2. The power of the study to draw conclusions. Number 4. Prepared a detailed table of specifications. First, it improves the validity of teacher-made tests. Second, it can improve students' learning as well. A table of specification helps to ensure that there is a match between what is taught and what is being tested. Number 5. Ask others to judge the match between the assessment items and the objectives of the assessment. It is important to align learning objectives with instructional strategies and assessments to ensure that everyone involved is aware of the expectations. Number 6. Compare groups known to differ on what is being assessed. Comparison groups are important because they help us control for any factors that may be influencing the relationship. Number 7. Compare scores taken before to those taken after instructions. It produces higher achievement and more positive relationships among students. Number 8. Compared predicted consequences to actual consequences. When it is being predicted the outcome of a future event, the prediction might have a positive or negative effect on the enjoyment they experience. Number 9. Compare scores on similar but different traits. Higher curiosity and intellectual engagement results in positive correlations between openness and approaches to learning. Number 10. Provide adequate time to complete the assessments. Adequate resources to undertake a sufficiency, comprehensive, and rigorous impact evaluations, including the availability of existing, can create a good quality of data. Number 11. Ensure appropriate vocabulary, sentence, structure, and item difficult. Instruction in vocabulary involves far more than looking up words in dictionary, and using the words in a sentence in this vocabulary is acquired incidentally. Number 12. Ask easy question first. It leads to new insight, generate discussion, and promote the comprehensive exploration of subject matter. Number 13. Use different methods to assess the same thing. Different assessment methods allow you to assess different aspects of students' learning. Having the right mix of methods means that a number of different skills can be assessed. This section enables you to explore some possible assessments method by examining their advantages, challenges, validity, and vigor. Number 14. Use only intended purposes. An important part of assessment student understanding of course, content, and their level of competency in applying what they are learning. Reliability. What is reliability? It talks about reproducibility and consistency in methods and criteria. An assessment is said to be reliable if it produces the same result if given to an examinee on two occasions. It is important to stress that reliability pertains to the obtained assessment results and not to the test or any other instruments. Reliability is unlikely to turn out 100% because no two tests will consistently produce identical results. For a test to be valid, it has to be reliable. On the other hand, a test can be found reliable, but it doesn't imply that the test measures what it purports to. Types of reliability. There are two types of reliability, the internal reliability and the external reliability. The internal reliability assesses the consistency of result across items within a test, while the external reliability gauges the extent to which a measure varies from one use to another.
Good afternoon. I am the last reporter from Group 3. I'll just discuss about source of reliability evidence. Stability. The test-retest reliability correlates scores obtained from two administrations of the same test over a period of time. So, ang test retest reliability kay nag-correlate sa scores nga gihatag sa duha ka administration sa pareha nga test in a over of time. Then, it is used to determine the stability of test results or over time. It assumes that there is no considerable change in the construct between the first and second testing. So, wag gyapoy mausog sa gi-construct sa duha ka testing sa una ug ikaduha. Then timing is critical because characteristics may change if the time interval is too long. So nasa critical sa timing kay tungod sa characteristic naay posibilidad nga mabag-o kay tungod sa time interval nga taas ra. Then a short gap between the testing session is also not recommendable because subjects may steal their responses. Ikaduha, equivalence. Parallel forms of reliability ascertain the equivalency of forms. In this method, two different versions of an assessment tool are administered to the same group of individuals. So, nay duha ka managlahi nga versions nga assessment tool nga gihatag sa administration sa pareha nga grupo o sa individual. Then, however, the terms are parallel. The two sets of scores are then correlated in order to evaluate the consistency of results across alternate versions. Equivalent forms are ideal for makeup tests or action researchers that would utilize pre-test and post-test. An equivalent test is not just a matter of rearranging the item. So, ang equivalent test kay di ra siya magmatter sa pag-rearranging sa items kundi pod kanang kundi pod pag-rearrange pod sa uban tang. Then ikatulo, internal consistency. It implies that a student who has mastery learning will get all or most of the items correctly, while a student who knows a little or nothing about the subject matter will get all or more of the items wrong. So ang estudyante ko no nga na-master sa learning ug nakakuha sa kanang discuss sa iyang maestra kay may makakuha og daghan nga correct na items. Din ang usa ka pud ka estudyante nga nakahibaw ra og gamay sa isang pag learning to the time nga nagdiscuss iyang teacher kay mo pay makakuha og more items nga wrong. Then to check for internal consistency, the split half method can be used. The split half method is done by dividing the test into two, separating the first half and the second half of the test or by odd and even numbers, and then correlating the results of the two halves. So, ikaapat, scorer or rater consistency. People do not necessarily rate in a similar way. So, ang uban punong tao kay di sila mag-rate sa kapareha nga way. Then, they may have disagreements as to how response or materials should reflect reflect or demonstrate knowledge of the construct or skill being assessed. So nasa like disagreement nga kung giunsa nila pag-response or unsa ilang gigamit nga materials truly reflect or demonstrate sa usa ka knowledge nga gi-construct nila tungod sa isa ka skill nga ilang gi-assess. So certain characteristic of the raters contribute to errors like bias, halo effect, mood, fatigue, or etc. So kan nasa uban nga raters nga kanang di pantay ilang pag-judge sa usa ka model or anything sa ilang estudyante. Then inter-rater reliability is the degree to which different raters observes or judge agree in their assessment decision. So it is useful when grading essay writing samples, performance assessment, and portfolios. The statement inter-rater reliability. The Spearman's rank correlation or Cohen's kappa may be used to calculate the correlation coefficient between or among the ratings. So, ang meaning sa Spearman's rank correlation coefficient is used to discover the strength of a link between two sets of data. So, mo ni ang isahang example sa Spearman rank correlation. So, if the first student's physics rank is 3 and the math rank is 5, then the rank is 3. In the fourth column, square your D values. The Spearman's rank correlation for this data is 0.9 and thus mentioned above if the p-value is nearing plus 1, then they have a perfect association of rank. Then ang meaning sa Cohen's kappa is used to measure the level of agreement between two rates or judge who each classify items into mutually exclusive categories. It can also be used to assess the performance of a classification model. So, mo ni siya ang Cohen's kappa ang mag-assess sa performance or mag-classify sa usa ka modelo. Then, ang iyang example is if we had two bankers and we asked both to classify 100 customers in two classes for credit rating that is good and bad. Based on their credit worthiness, we could then measure the level of their agreement through Cohen's kappa. So, sa pagkuha, gamiton na to ang method nga Cohen's kappa. Then, decision consistency. It describes how consistent classification decisions are rather than how consistent the scores are. Decision consistency is seen in situations when teachers decide who will receive a passing or fail mark or considered to possess mastery or not. So, ang decision consistency kay nagkuhan sa situation kung ang teacher mag-decide kung kinsa ang maka-receive og dako nga marka o kinsa po tong gamay nga makakuha og kanang grade. Sunod, reliability of assessment method. So, lighten the assessment procedure by providing more time, more questions, and more observation whenever practical. So, atas provide dan po nato sila more time for kanang ma-observe o kunday na mga practical nga gamon. Then, broaden the scope of the procedure by assessing all the significant aspect of the largest learning performance. Improve objectivity by using a systematic and more formal procedure for scoring student performance. A scoring scheme or rubric would prove useful. Use multiple markers by employing inter-rater reliability. Combine results from several assessments, especially when making crucial educational decisions. Provide sufficient time to student in completing the assessment procedure. So, tagaan sad na to sila dako nga time ang estudyante para makomplete ang ilang assessment nga gipagama or anything na gipagama sa ilang teacher. Then, teach students how to perform their best by providing practice and training to students and motivating them. So, tudluan sad na to ang isa ka estudyante nga mo-perform sa ilahang kanang best zod nga ato silang tudluan sa practice. Then, ato sad silang gabayan silang training for making them motivating for for participating in any activity in school. Then match the assessment of difficulty to the students' ability levels by providing tasks that are neither too easy or nor too difficult, and tailoring the assessment to each student's ability level when possible. So pwede sad nimo sila i-match sa isa ka assessment nga kanang ilahang makuan sa pud makaparar pud sa ilang ability nga naan nila, or kan is sa sunod ba imong ihatag or difficult nga test nga imong ihatag nila, kanang kana pong ma-level sa ilang ability sa pag kanang answer. Then differentiate among students by selecting assessment tasks that distinguish or discriminate the best for the less able students. So that's all. Thank you.